If you checked your phone lately and asked yourself what's the difference between healthy air quality and unhealthy air quality, well, you're going to be for a really good treat for a really good lesson. Good evening and welcome to Give Me a Break. I'm Jonathan Carmody. Do you know the difference between unhealthy air and healthy air? Well, the healthy air that's outside is the non-smoking air. But do you really know the But can you really tell the difference between healthy air and unhealthy air? And what in the world could cause this? Here's Aaron Holland.
Neighbors across the coastal bend may have noticed some lingering smoke in the air following several fires on Tuesday. This smoke can be dangerous for some neighbors. I asked Joanna Strother from the American Lung Association who is considered at risk and what should those neighbors do to protect themselves.
So this is the orange level we see when we look at the air quality index. And those sensitive groups, again, are children and older adults, pregnant people, people with underlying respiratory and cardiovascular conditions like asthma and COPD.
Strother recommends all neighbors to stay indoors when the air quality index is marked unsafe. That applies to especially those in the at-risk category. She recommends wearing a KN95 mask if you have to go outside during these times. You can find out the air quality index for your location at any time. Look for the link in this story on our website. In Corpus Christi, I'm your neighborhood news reporter Aaron Holly, Chris 6 News.
And that brings us to our next story. This story involves the fires that happened on Tuesday. If you lived on the south side and saw some smoke and flames, you might have noticed some fires. But we're going to now take you to the south side to where all the neighbors had to evacuate. Were they worried about evacuating? And what's to blame with all the fires that are happening on the south side? Could it be the wind? Or could it be some lightning? Or could it be copy and paste wildfires like in California? Here's Tony Hallamir.
Hey, Papa John's here, and are you hungry? I know I am. Got a great deal just for you. It's called Papa Parents. Get 2 of these for just $6.99 each. Get a medium one-topping pizza, maybe chicken wings, cheese sticks, one of our desserts. You combine them, Papa Parents is $6.99 each. So, Nick.
Andy, I've been out here since about 10 a.m. when the fire started at the disc golf course behind Bill Witt Park. The fire then pushed its way towards the Rancho Vista subdivision, where I spoke to neighbors who weren't sure what would happen here today.
Yeah, this morning about 10 a.m. I took the dog out the front door. I live over at Stargazer, and I look and see the smoke coming from the north there.
Yeah, it makes it real. You know, you see about all of those fires, all those different families, and you definitely think it can never happen to you. And until now, you walk outside your house and you see a whole bunch of smoke.
Neighbors kept a watchful eye as the situation unfolded right behind them. There was growing concern as the flames inched closer to some homes.
And now we already started getting all our bags, all our important documents, just in case we have to evacuate. We have all the necessities and everything that's important, ready to go.
Corpus Christi police could be seen talking to residents, which prompted some to wonder if the area was being evacuated.
I'm always looking at worst case scenario, and if we need to evacuate, it's just items. I got a wife, I got 2 kids and a dog, so as long as they're safe, that's all I care about.
Police officials later confirmed that there were no evacuations, but they warned residents in the nearby homes about the fire.
Now all of a sudden to look at it and think that all of that is about to go away, but hopefully everything is contained. And
the last update we had from CCFD was that the fire burned about 50 acres, but no homes or any other structures were damaged.
It's devastating to think about. I've been in this house 1.5 years now, so I'd hate to start all over.
At this time, first responders say no fire officials or residents were hurt. We'll be sure to keep you updated. For now, reporting live.
And we'll keep you updated as well. A bit later in the broadcast. But here's some great news for you, for those people that like basketball out there. March Madness is coming up, and that trophy you see could be the start to the 2025 in March Madness. But what can you really know, and when's the next tournament? Here's my good friend, Larissa Liska.
You might know Harbor Freight for affordability. What you might not know?
The 2025 NCAA Men's Basketball National Championship Trophy made a tour stop in Corpus Christi. We got a glimpse of the coveted trophy at Texas A&M University Corpus Christi, home of the Division I Islanders who made the tournament 2 seasons ago. March Madness is almost here, and then the top 4 teams will take a trip to the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, April 4th through 7th. Fans who want to attend can get the full experience, have a chance to meet former players, and more.
We want everybody in this area to feel very much a part of this. This is South Texas's basketball celebration. So it is not just for San Antonio, it is for all of us in this area, and we just hope you'll come up and have fun, be a part of it, and hang out in downtown San Antonio that first weekend in April.
And that first week in April could be an April Fool's joke, but really it could mean the start of March Madness for Texas A&M University. It's a great job to those people out there, and great hard work this year. But not as great hard work as the Project Baltimore. Baltimore County is in an audit right now because of all the scandals that was going on. Because of all the scandals that have been going on. Next, we'll look at some school records that are filled with just lots of violations, and raises the question of why would they have lots of violations and have audits when the scandals really been taking place? Please stay with us. Every state you live in has educational laws. The state of Texas has the TEA, which has its own educational laws. You can find those at www.statutes.capitol.texas.gov. But Baltimore, Maryland is under attack right now because of all these audits. Now, one CEO has resigned because of all the audits. So the question really remains, are they violating state laws? Like we talked about, we've shown you some cases and examples of Baltimore County violating its laws and ghost students, like we showed you. So the question is, could the record show that Baltimore has violated its educational laws according to the state of Maryland? Here's Chris Papps.
Yolanda Cooley is the founder of the nonprofit People Empowered by the Struggle. She's also a 2-time Democratic candidate for mayor of Baltimore.
There has been no accountability under her leadership.
Years ago, Cooley began calling for the CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools, Dr. Sonia Santelises, to be replaced. And this recent audit by the Maryland Office of Legislative Services, Cooley feels, validates her concerns.
Well, unfortunately, I have been proven right. I'm still calling for her resignation.
This financial audit, released in February, details 17 findings for operational failures, which is the most among the school systems in our area. Carroll County, in its most recent audit, had 9 findings. Baltimore County had 11. Howard and Anne Arundel counties had 13.
I just see it as business as usual when it comes down to Baltimore City. So why should we even be shocked at these 17 findings? I'm shocked that it's not more than that.
Some of the findings for Baltimore City were significant, including apparent violations of state law. In 2019, a Maryland law took effect that mandated school employees who come in contact with children be properly screened for potential child abuse claims. In 2022, according to the audit, more than 1,500 city schools employees were hired who interact with children. The auditors randomly picked 12 of those employees and found 7 were not properly screened for potential abuse allegations. Nearly 60%.
I feel like some criminal charges need to be brought up on somebody inside of Baltimore City school systems, inside of the Board of Education at this point.
Because this finding does appear to be a violation of state law.
Again, against the law.
Yeah.
Why are we doing things that's against the law and getting away with it? when we can't get away with things that's against the law, so why can they?
The audit also found between July 2021 and February 2023, the district failed to pay more than 16,000 vendor invoices on time, totaling more than $142 million. And each of those invoices were paid over 90 days late.
How about if we withhold their paychecks? How about if we don't pay our taxes so we don't have to pay the school system?
Then there's police overtime. The audit found city schools did not adequately monitor or control police overtime. The district should have already known about this problem. For the past few years, Project Baltimore has been investigating city schools police overtime. In 2023, school police officer Lawrence Smith was indicted by the FBI. He's accused of tax violations and fraudulently submitting overtime to obtain more than $215,000 taxpayer dollars.
Chris, at this point, this is just laughable. It's just insane. It's diabolical that they're able to get away with this type of behavior and nobody does anything.
City schools declined an interview with Fox 45 to discuss this audit. So we sent an email asking, has anyone been held accountable for city schools' failures following the audit's release? The district did not directly answer our question, saying in a statement, proper accountability measures were taken to ensure an effective response. Many of the findings have been or will be addressed immediately, and progress on the remaining items is ongoing. Because of this, we expect to improve our results when the next OLA audit occurs. Keep in mind, city schools' 17 operational failures are happening in a district with high administrative costs. According to the U.S. Census, city schools has the 5th highest administrative cost per student among the nation's largest districts. State data tells us the district employs 942 administrators at central office. Yet, even with a large oversight team, state laws and administrative procedures, according to the audit, were not followed.
When it comes down to it, this is their fault. Y'all need to hold these people accountable. Why do we continue to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result? At this point, it's not insanity. We're just stupid.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore. I'm Chris Pabst. Thanks for watching.
Well, let's see what people have to say. This is why we need Dodge, D-O-G-E. The auditors checked 12 employees to see if they have been screened. How can they call for a full audit? How many employees have things on their record that would disqualify them from working with children? What other surveillance can be found? Elect this intelligent lady. We need D-O-G-E. Vote Republican Baltimoreans if you ever want to change. We want change. Exactly. That woman right there, she's right. We do need some change. And if we don't have some change, then maybe then no one can learn all about accountability, not paying taxes. But you can still go to jail for not paying any taxes. But the thing is, we have to be able to understand where people are coming from. And of course, we want to be able to educate our kids in the way possible. But we don't want that happening to where nobody gets held accountable. I mean, laws may say no one's going to be held accountable. Let's just rewrite this.
Looks like the microphone can't be used right now. Try again later.
Let's just switch it over. We as a society, the majorities, the school's majority, we as a society would like to have a law which says that an educational law which says that all schools must take responsibility for every action they violate. And try to fix it before the end of the school year. If not, then the district, the U.S. Department of Education can suspend funding for all schools, and that's for the state of Maryland. Simple law in the state of Maryland. Make that law, you can make some change, and you too can make a difference. You may be familiar with yesterday's story about Dr. Jeffrey Wygant, how he talked about all the ingredients in the cigarettes, all the documents, and how he had threats on him from somebody that worked at RJR, or Brown Williamson. Up next, there's another story about the cigarettes, and everybody is up in smoke from children who play with cigarettes, more like playing with fire. That story is next. Please stay with us. Yesterday, I brought you the story of Dr. Jeffrey Wygant, one of the persons that worked at Brown Williamson or RJR, or RJ Reynolds. He was the one who blew the whistle to Mike Wallace in 60 Minutes for the very first time in 1996, saying he has the documents and talking about all the ingredients. He was sued and almost was CBS. But before all that, there was some no smoking signs all over the community. All over every community you can live in. You go to a baseball park, you go to a restaurant, no smoking signs. And tobacco companies have been sued. They've won while the victims have lost because powerful lawyers can even say that this product does not harm this person or that person or whatever. But adding to all that is hundreds of fires caused by the cigarette, and even the children. So really the question everyone's always asking is, could children be at risk with fire caused by cigarettes? We gotta remember, cigarettes. We gotta remember. We looked at PSAs that talked about the advertising of cigarettes for children and how it's bad for them. You may have seen an episode of South Park saying, smoke is bad. Okay. If you start smoking at an early age, it's gonna be bad. Okay. Smoking all kinds of things like cancer. Okay, let me tell you something about cancer. Okay, now, cancer's bad. Okay, here's Mike Wallace. Okay, okay. But could somebody be up at smoke? Who will be up at smoke? The victims or the tobacco industry? Here's Mike Wallace.
Ann Brown is the newly appointed chairman of the Consumer Product Safety Commission. She deplores the fact that her agency does not have the power to regulate cigarettes.
100 children die each year in cigarette-related fires, ignited fires. Now, those children aren't smoking in bed. Those children haven't started those fires. Those children are innocent victims. And by not regulating the cigarette companies to produce a fire-safe cigarette, we're burning up our kids in their Dr. Dentons.
Every year, over 1,000 Americans die in fires ignited by cigarettes. Accidents that sometimes take the lives not just of the smoker, but of the smoker's family, too. Cigarette fires cost us billions of dollars a year in damages. And for the survivors, the thousands of burn injury victims, the consequences can be devastating. Dr. Joan Kaplan is the surgeon in charge of the burn unit at the Oliver Bates Hospital in Berkeley, California.
Of the really serious burn-injured victims that I see, a very significant number are caused by cigarette-caused fires. Just as an elderly lady that was smoking in bed, unfortunately, a cigarette caught the mattress on fire, and she sustained very deep burns, particularly to her legs, which required amputation.
Every year, over 8,000 people are killed or disfigured by careless smoking.
In this ad, as they have for decades, America's firefighters have tried to warn the public about the dangers of cigarette fires.
Smoking finally caught up with me. No, I don't have cancer. No, it's not emphysema either. In fact, I seldom even smoked. My husband did, in bed. It was his last. I guess you could say I was the lucky one.
Can the tragedy of cigarette fires be prevented? Can the tobacco industry make a fire-safe cigarette, a less ignition-prone cigarette, that would be less likely to ignite upholstery and bedding and so would save lives? The tobacco companies say they do not know how to make a fire-safe cigarette that anyone would buy.
The Surgeon General says that cigarette smoking is dangerous to your health. It may be dangerous to your health, but you shouldn't have to burn up in your bed, too.
Tobacco companies say, look, it's the smoker who is negligent. Somebody gets drunk It's not our fault if he gets drunk and goes to bed with a cigarette and it starts a fire in the house.
There can be stupid consumers, and they deserve to be protected as well as smart consumers. If somebody falls asleep in a bed and he's going to burn alive because he drops his cigarette, he falls asleep, and it is possible to protect this stupid consumer by having a fire-safe cigarette, why in the world shouldn't we mandate it?
Well, why haven't they been regulated? Look, you people regulate lawn darts.
Correct.
And maybe a half a dozen or 10 or a dozen kids get hurt with those lawn darts each year.
Right.
More than 400,000 people die of cigarettes. 1,000 of them each year, 1,200 from cigarette fires. Why are they not regulated?
We are specifically not allowed to regulate cigarettes. They're not in our jurisdiction.
Because of stiff opposition by the politically powerful tobacco lobby, Congress has so far refused to regulate cigarettes. But 10 years ago, Congress did set up a study group that included firefighters, public health advocates, and representatives of the tobacco industry. Their task? To determine if a fire-safe cigarette is technically and commercially feasible. Dr. Richard Gann, chief of the Fire Science Division of the National Institute of Standards and Technology, was put in charge of the study.
We are neutral, we're non-regulatory, we're non-biased. We have the leading fire research group in the country and perhaps the world.
Dr. Gann's group got the tobacco companies to provide them with these cigarettes made in the tobacco company factories. Hundreds of thousands of cigarettes of every size, diameter, and tobacco mixture imaginable. And they studied them, as in this demonstration, to determine if and how long it would take for each different kind of cigarette to ignite upholstered furniture. They developed a scientific system in their laboratories for testing and comparing the relative fire safety of hundreds of different kinds of cigarettes. And after years of experiments and millions of dollars, the study group came to a conclusion.
And we did determine, to the unanimous approval of that technical study group,
Including representatives of the tobacco companies?
That's true. There were 4 of their senior members on that group. We did determine that it was technically possible to make such a cigarette.
Technically?
But the evidence is right here. Some of these cigarettes are distinctly less likely to cause a fire than, say, these cigarettes.
And did the tobacco people agree with you when your tests finally came out, your results?
They agreed that it was technically possible to make such a cigarette.
Andrew McGuire was a member of Dr. Gann's study group. He's recognized as one of the leading fire safety advocates in the nation. McGuire showed us one of the fire-safe cigarettes developed by Dr. Gann.
This cigarette, when it's lit, and then after it's lit, is placed on flammable furniture. It burns, the ash burns all the way to the filter tip, but it doesn't cause an ignition.
How come?
The reason is there's not enough heat transferred from the burning cigarette down into the fabric because of the density of the tobacco, how dense it is, and also the paper has less ability for oxygen to go through the paper.
And McGuire says the study group concluded it would be cheaper to make these cigarettes because they require less tobacco.
If they can make a cigarette not cause a fire and do it for no extra cost, why not do it? We have standards for automobiles so that when they're rear-ended, they don't explode. And that costs a lot more to do than making a cigarette not cause a fire.
But the tobacco companies say there's a fundamental problem, a big problem for them. Their surveys on various cigarettes developed by Dr. Gann show that, quote, consumers overwhelmingly rejected fire-safe cigarettes because they, quote, did not taste good, were bitter, and harder to draw.
Well, I've heard it said that it's like sucking on concrete or sucking through 5 straws a
wet concrete. Exactly. Do you want me to show you how hard it is to puff on this?
Please. Let me see.
Is that hard to puff on?
Dr. Gann's testing identified 5 brands out of the 500 brands currently on the market that meet his fire safety standard. Virginia Slims, More 100s, Capri, and Eve 100s. All of these cigarettes are longer, thinner, and have less porous paper. But these 5 brands represent less than 1% of cigarette sales. So what about the major brands? How do they compare when it comes to fire safety.
Marlboro, Winston, Kool, Pall Mall, Newport, Salem, Camel, and
we tested the 14 best sellers, which comprise about 40% of total sales, nearly half the market. What we found is that those 14 types of cigarettes ignited the fabrics and padding materials in our test method virtually every time.
Really?
Yes.
And the tobacco companies are aware of that.
They know the figures.
And what is the tobacco industry's response to all this? They dismiss Dr. Gann's method of determining whether one cigarette is more fire safe than another as not scientific, deficient. And despite the fact that there are 5 fire-safe brands on the market, though they aren't advertised as fire-safe, the tobacco industry continues to insist that any cigarette manufactured to be fire-safe is, in their words, not in the ballpark when it comes to consumer acceptability. Well, what about these claims by the tobacco industry? We received these documents, over 800 pages of documents marked confidential, apparently from inside the files of the Philip Morris Company, the industry leader. Documents dating back to 1977. Research documents that say that for over 15 years, their researchers have known that making a fire-safe cigarette was not an impossible task, and that in fact they needed to develop a fire-safe cigarette and then put it on their shelf just in case, quote, public pressure builds unduly. We showed some of these documents to Congressman Joseph Moakley of Boston, who has led the fight in Congress for 15 years to get a fire safety standard for cigarettes.
This indicates to me that they knew 15 years ago how to cut back on the ignition propensity of cigarettes.
And what have they been telling you for the past 15 years?
They've been telling us that they can't really guarantee that they can do it.
But the Philip Morris documents say they can do it. In 1982, before Dr. Gann's study group even began, Philip Morris had launched its own super-secret undertaking called Project Hamlet, also dubbed inside the company To Burn or Not to Burn. Its goal? To develop a fire-safe cigarette that will be acceptable to smokers. We showed some of these Hamlet documents to Dr. Gann, who, as chairman of that study group, met regularly with representatives of Philip Morris and the other tobacco companies for a decade.
Have you ever heard of something called Project Hamlet?
No, I haven't.
Did you know that they were testing?
No.
Then we showed Dr. Gann the Philip Morris documents that described their development of a fire-safe cigarette.
This was all a surprise to you?
Definitely.
According to this Project Hamlet file, Philip Morris researchers tested a fire-safe version of the world's best-selling cigarette, the Marlboro. And in 1987, according to the Hamlet file, they apparently succeeded. Their research memo says that they set out the fire-safe Hamlet cigarette to a panel of 77 smokers, and it was, quote, equally acceptable to the smokers in the test and showed no significant differences, close quote, between the fire-safe cigarette and the Marlboro.
And they had the capacity to make a cigarette that is fire safe?
That's right.
In effect,
It's
the Philip Morris Company has been lying to you.
Yes, they have.
Philip Morris wouldn't talk to us about any of this unless we would provide them with our questions in advance, and that's against CBS News policy. They had sent us to their Washington lawyers, Covington and Burling, who represent all the tobacco companies. They also declined to talk to us on camera. We contacted Dr. A.W. Spears, the chief executive of Lorillard Tobacco, the industry's leading spokesman on this issue, and he declined to talk with us as well. We should point out that Lorillard is wholly owned by Lowe's Corporation, which is the largest stockholder in CBS.
At the time that you people were doing your tests, they had done the same tests already, and they knew that they had a fire-safe cigarette that was saleable.
If those documents are correct,
They are the Philip Morris documents.
there's a waste of money and human life. And that's really the sadness and the tragedy of it.
Why are the cigarette companies apparently so reluctant to manufacture and advertise a fire-safe cigarette?
Mr. Wallace, that's a question you have to ask the cigarette companies. I can give you my theory.
Please.
They don't want their product associated with burn injuries or fire deaths, and that it's very difficult for them to finesse this issue through their marketing. I mean, how can they come out and say our cigarettes are fire safe? What does that mean about all the past cigarettes? That's a very tough marketing problem.
Marketing, it's a very tough legal problem, I suppose, because if people have died, their families will sue.
It's a tough legal problem.
Well, that legal problem is about to come to court because of this fire 4 years ago in Boston, Massachusetts. A fire ignited, according to court documents, by a Marlboro Light that killed this family. The surviving family members have sued the Philip Morris Company, the manufacturers of Marlboro, for millions, claiming they knew for years how to make a fire-safe cigarette. And it's also once again on the agenda in Congress, where Representative Moakley has introduced a bill to set a fire safety standard for all cigarettes.
This is a company, Philip Morris or RJR or Lorillard or Brown Williamson or American, the others. These are companies that say there's no relationship between smoking and cancer and heart disease. It's also now a company or companies that say that they can't make a cigarette that won't cause fires.
Last Thursday, the Philip Morris Company held a press conference to announce their $10 billion libel suit against ABC, and we were there to see if we could get some answers to our questions. You have a Project Hamlet, which seems to indicate that the Philip Morris Company does indeed have a fire-safe cigarette tested as long ago as 1987.
I'm not familiar with Project Hamlet as you describe it.
You have been stonewalling us for a year or a year and a half on the subject of fire-safe cigarettes.
Mr. Walls, I think I've answered your question. Are there any other questions about our suit against ABC? Yes, sir.
There probably wasn't. All they could talk about was that suit filed by Philip Morris, that ABC lawsuit. But could we ever see a fire-safe cigarette? We could. But could we have cane cigarettes back in the future? Probably not. Because that's setting bad examples out there. I said we were going to talk about how if the tobacco companies were to lose a case on Friday, we're going to push it up to today. Because there's a joke lined up with this. You know I don't smoke. Because you damn sure going to be putting a smoke in my mouth. Something in my mouth. I mean, I'd just go shit on the tobacco industry. No offense to tobacco users out there. I just pull my pants down and just shit. And then wipe my ass with a paper with a cigarette. Or with a cigarette. There, smoke that. Then I take that shit-stained cigarette back to the tobacco industry and be like, here, smoke this. Leave it on their doorstep. Alright. Switching gears now. What can happen when a tobacco industry can really lose a lawsuit? Mike Wallace is back with the next story that could even put the tobacco companies out of business. But can it? Stay with us. If your loved one died of smoking and you sued the tobacco industry saying, well, this cigarette right here killed my husband, y'all in front of the courtroom, and you sued them for $100 million, would you be able to get a fair trial? No, because the tobacco industry would always win a court case. If you sue the tobacco industry, you'll probably lose your case. Tobacco industries can win cases. Why? Because they can hire the best lawyers ever. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars hiring the best lawyers ever. Now, we're not condoning this. What we're stating are facts. Tonight we're going to tell you what can happen when tobacco is on trial, and we're going to ask the question, what will happen if a tobacco company loses a court case? A new trial or an appeal? Or give up? Here again, Mike Wallace.
At this pre-trial hearing in New Jersey, as the judge called the roll, we began to find out just how determined the tobacco industry is not to lose anywhere, anytime, at any cost.
These cases are Barnes, Burko, and Smith versus R.J. Reynolds, American Tobacco, Philip Morris, the Tobacco Institute, various other defendants. May I have your appearances, please?
On behalf of the moving party owners, R.J. Reynolds, Jack Lewis, George Golden Foley, and Mr. Nicholas Katzenbach of Riker Danzig.
On behalf of Intervenor Brandon Williamson Tobacco Corporation and Karen Thompson, Norris, McLaughlin, and Marcus.
In the Smith case only, Your Honor, on behalf of the American Tobacco Company, John Carney from Kenny and Carney.
In the Barnes case only, Your Honor, on behalf of the Tobacco Institute, Russell L. Hewitt of Dewey and Hewitt and Paul R. Duke of Covington and Burling.
This hearing concerns three cases, one of them brought by Doris and Roy Smith. Doris has lost 2/3 of her lung to cancer. In over 125 cases like these, the tobacco industry has retained 87 of the most expensive law firms in the United States. And some of that top legal talent is here, including former U.S. Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach representing R.J. Reynolds. Most of the people in this courtroom, at the table, in the gallery, are with the tobacco companies. While for the plaintiffs, who's up against all that? These two young lawyers, Alan Darnell and Mark Edel.
Why do the tobacco companies need so many lawyers?
Because they want to impress everyone with the wall of flesh. The sheer number of human bodies that they're willing to throw at these cases to impress the courts, to intimidate the lawyers, and to intimidate our clients into thinking that they're invincible.
But the clients so far are not intimidated. Doris and Roy Smith are suing R.J. Reynolds and American Brands, alleging that Mrs. Smith's lung cancer was contracted because she smoked their cigarettes. Salem and Pall Mall. Mrs. Smith started smoking back in 1944 at age 17, 22 years before the Surgeon General's warning first appeared on cigarette packs. Mr. Smith is blind from an unrelated industrial accident. The case, filed 3 years ago, has not yet come to trial.
I had never been to a deposition in my life. Walk into a conference room with my husband and my lawyer, and sitting at the table were 10 faces. 10 faces. I'm thinking, Joe, all these people going to ask me questions.
And Mrs. Smith was flabbergasted by some of the questions.
Do you remember why you were absent for 9 days in the 3rd grade?
They were trying to establish some kind of a medical history, is that the one?
Evidently they were, but...
There were other questions which upset Mrs. Smith. About one of her daughter's stillborn twins, and about another daughter's son who was born with a club foot.
I had lost twins in August of 1984. They were questioning me as to what happened, why did it happen? At which point I stopped it. I went off the record because I was getting very upset by it. It's still not an easy thing for me to talk about. That had nothing to do with my mother's lung cancer.
Pam, why do you think that they asked about David's club foot?
I'm sure that no one could possibly connect a club foot to lung cancer. I don't see how there could be any, even a slight connection.
Is that not just hardball legal tactics? After all, there are conceivably billions of dollars involved for the tobacco companies.
But their winning or losing has nothing to do with David having had a foot problem.
Neighbors, distant relatives, their 5 children, and of course Mr. and Mrs. Smith have been questioned at length in deposition by the tobacco lawyers. But there is more. Private investigators hired by the tobacco companies. According to the Smith family and their attorneys, several times investigators called Mrs. Smith's 82-year-old seriously ill mother at her senior citizen home at night. After the family objected, company lawyers still insisted on a deposition, even while she lay in the hospital in an oxygen tent. Turns out Mrs. Smith's mother was never deposed. She died.
After what they did with my mother, how could anybody be that way, one human being to another? I understand their job.
Wouldn't you, if you were in their shoes, do everything that you could to save $25 million?
Everything humanly possible. I might not even be nice either at times, but I don't think I could sink that low. I really don't.
You just think that they were excessively...
I certainly do. More than excessively.
Zealous.
Especially since we had cooperated fully.
Why do you really think they pressed so hard to question your mother?
Well, I think they thought maybe if they upset me enough that I might back out of the lawsuit, I might change my mind.
According to attorneys and investigators we spoke with, this kind of aggressiveness is standard operating procedure with tobacco company investigators. And Mr. Smith agrees.
They appear on people's porches at 8, 9 o'clock at night, old women, widows, living alone, ring doorbells. I don't object to them in talking to these people, but call and make an appointment. Like a gentleman.
The aggressive questioning and the background investigation the Smiths described as part of the tobacco industry's legal strategy. A lawyer who formerly represented a major U.S. tobacco company told us the tobacco industry deliberately makes plaintiffs, quote, walk the coals, close quote, in the hope that they will drop their lawsuits. The means to that end is the use of private investigators who probe into subjects like a plaintiff's moral character. Smith family attorney Alan Darnell explains.
Is he a strong personality, a weak personality? Did he drink to excess? Did he use drugs? Did he beat his children? Anything they can to make it uncomfortable for our clients to continue with these lawsuits. And on a few occasions, they've come close to having our clients saying, the heck with it, I'm going to drop this lawsuit.
The plaintiff's lawyers, of course, take the cases to make money. And if they win, they'll get at least a third of whatever award a jury grants their clients. But if they lose, they get nothing. At the beginning of the litigation, they themselves foot the bills, and it's expensive. Including the Smith lawsuit, Darnell and Liddell now have 8 cases against the tobacco industry.
We've spent $500,000 out of our pocket. $500,000. We spent over $2 million worth of lawyer time in this case.
And the tobacco companies that you're fighting, what would you estimate they have spent?
We estimate that they have spent in the New Jersey cases alone somewhere between $50 and $75 million. We estimate that based upon the number of lawyers that we have working on it as compared to the number of lawyers that they have working on.
Why would a smoker bring a lawsuit against a tobacco firm? After all, the warning is there on the package.
By the time the warnings appeared, our clients who had been smoking 15, 20, 40 years at that point were no longer free to stop.
They're no longer free to stop. They were hooked.
They were hooked. Nicotine has been recognized by the National Institute of Drug Abuse as a dependence-producing substance.
But the tobacco companies argue they are not legally responsible, in part because the smoker voluntarily incurred the fatal risk. A risk that they, of course, continue to deny exists. The companies also contend that the health warnings on cigarette packs protect them from lawsuits. And so far, 3 federal appeals courts have agreed with them. Of course, the tobacco companies were bitterly opposed to putting those same health warnings on cigarette packs beginning back in 1966. And critics like Darnell contend that smokers, especially those who began smoking years before that, have been deliberately lured, in effect, under false pretenses.
When they started, they had no idea that what they were doing was eventually going to make them sick. The tobacco companies have enticed people to smoke by their continued depiction of healthy people smoking.
And in fact, when Doris Smith first began to smoke, 2 decades before the first Surgeon General's warning in 1966, some of the old commercials and ads did communicate the message that smoking was good for you. For digestion's sake, smoke Camels. Luckies are always so kind to your throat.
And you know something? Philip Morris is the one cigarette suggested by nose and throat doctors as definitely less irritating. So it's gotta be good.
20 little white cigarettes in a clean white pack, and they're very happy they grew up to be Chesterfield. Better? And we're very happy too because they're wonderful for you.
And by the way, all kinds of people advertised cigarettes back then, including me.
Prove to yourself that Philip Morris is different. Marlboro Country.
Cigarette commercials were taken off television back in 1971.
For this broadcast, no one from any of the major tobacco companies would talk to us on camera. Not Philip Morris or R.J. Reynolds, Brown & Williamson, Lorillard, American Brands, Liggett. Lawrence Tisch, president of CBS and also chairman of Lorillard, declined to comment or appear.
Cal Crary is the tobacco industry analyst for the investment firm of Bear Stearns.
This is a golden goose that they wish to preserve for as long as possible. So I say it's just about the most profitable consumer product ever invented. It just generates tens of billions of dollars in revenue just by the sale of the product in this country alone.
What would happen if a tobacco company were to lose one of these lawsuits?
one plaintiff victory will inspire, I think, hundreds of lawsuits. And out of those, I think you'll have more victories. And those, in turn, will inspire thousands of lawsuits. I believe that it will snowball.
It is not just the money that might be lost from actual lawsuits that worries the tobacco industry. It is also the effect that losing those lawsuits could have on public attitudes.
What the tobacco industry is worried about is to have public and regulatory attitudes say, wait a minute, this is not a consumer product. This is a poisonous product that is disguised as a consumer product, and it's killing off people like rabbits, and we have got to do something about it.
We asked Crary if there are any lawsuits soon to go to trial which the tobacco industry might just lose.
I'm interested in the Mississippi case. That's a case that involves a black plaintiff. It's going to be a black jury. The judge appears, who's white, but appears fairly sympathetic to the plaintiff's side.
In Lexington, Mississippi, this is the videotaped deposition of Nathan Horton, who learned last year he had lung cancer. Horton had smoked Pall-Mall cigarettes for 37 years, and he brought suit against the American Tobacco Company. Some of the same aggressive techniques the Smith family encountered in New Jersey surfaced here, too. Horton was asked by tobacco lawyers if he had fathered any illegitimate children, if he had venereal disease, if his construction business had ever failed. His health deteriorated quickly, and 4 months later he gave another deposition in which he was so weak as to be almost inaudible.
Jack, I came away. One morning, I'll wake up. I'm
7 weeks after this tape was made, Nathan Horton was dead. Paul Rothstein is professor of law at Georgetown University, where he teaches, among other things, legal ethics.
Are these legal tactics undertaken by the tobacco companies unfair?
I think they are unfair. I think they are bad, but they are permitted by the law and ethics that we have today. Lawyers are driven into this excessive investigation of these cases and
driven by the tobacco companies.
Driven by the tobacco companies, by their duty to their client, by the money that they are paid.
And it is that system that, according to Rothstein and others, must be changed.
The system is supposed to work like a tug of war, both sides pulling equally hard on the rope with all their might, so that truth emerges from it. But if one side is a weak little child and the other side is 400 grown-ups, it's a fiction, it's a sham, it doesn't work fairly.
What could get you to back out now?
Now? There's nothing now that would get me to back out. I don't know how much longer it will take. I might not be here to see the end of it, but as long as I'm here, I'm going to go after it. I really am, because they definitely were the cause of my lung cancer, their product.
And they were definitely the cause. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Did you have breakfast this morning? You know the old saying, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But is it a myth? If so, we better start eating more breakfast. Here's John Stossel.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Most important meal of the day.
So we better eat breakfast.
A study from none other than Harvard University states that men who regularly skip breakfast have a 27% higher risk of suffering a heart attack.
This disease will lead to heart attacks and strokes. Heart attacks and strokes? Oh no, I skip breakfast. But I'm not worried, because now I know there's no proof that skipping breakfast causes heart attacks or any other problem. At Harvard study, the authors actually concluded it remains unknown whether specific eating habits influence heart disease risk. There's no proof that skipping breakfast is harmful in any way.
It's been pushed. It doesn't really hold water.
Nutritionist Ruth Kava points out that all the claims about breakfast being especially important are just unproven. That strokes and heart attack news persists because people who skip breakfast have more health problems. But that's partly because breakfast skippers are more likely to smoke and eat unhealthy food. There is just no proof that skipping breakfast itself causes problems. I've skipped breakfast for years.
That's fine.
Really? Fine.
It works for you. You're not fat.
We're all different.
Yeah, we're all different. We have to do what's comfortable for us.
Another myth about breakfast is that skipping it may make you fat.
People who skip breakfast were more likely to be the big weight gainers over time.
The government claimed that just 9 years ago, saying not eating breakfast has been associated with excess body weight. But that's not true either, according to a new analysis.
They looked at a number of different studies, and they did not find that eating breakfast helped people lose weight.
So how did some researchers and our government get it so wrong? Partly because eating habits are hard to study. You can't follow test subjects for years, controlling what they eat. Most studies are based on what people say they ate, and people forget or lie. Also, we may have been suckered by studies funded by cereal makers. Of the 15 studies involving children mentioned by the government, 5 list funding from General Mills or Kellogg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they're the ones that are interested in having their products sold.
In fairness, not all cereal companies spin the results. One study funded by Quaker Oats found eating breakfast did not help people lose weight. This study was unfavorable to Quaker Oats, but Quaker Oats said, let's publish it.
Good for Quaker Oats.
But let's not count on companies to tell us the truth about nutrition. Study found people who didn't eat breakfast could lose weight by starting to eat breakfast. Kellogg's touted this on their cereal boxes.
Don't get your nutrition education from cereal boxes.
Are you okay?
But what if instead of a cereal box, it's America's First Lady on Sesame Street?
I am very tired and have no energy. Oh.
I think I know what would help.
What, Secret Service? Air Force One?
No, Grover, a healthy breakfast.
Now there is data that shows
children who do not have decent nutrition during the course of the day have been shown to do better if they get some food into them in the morning. That's where that comes from.
It's valid.
It's appropriate.
Unfortunately, on Sesame Street, Michelle Obama doesn't just say children, she says everyone.
Grover, breakfast isn't just for first ladies. Everyone should have a healthy breakfast.
Oh, not me.
And much of the media push nonsense like claims that if you eat the right breakfast,
you are going to end up boosting your metabolism, losing the belly fat, restoring gut health.
Restoring gut health? There is so much bad information out there. The current consensus is eat breakfast if you're hungry.
Eat breakfast if you're hungry. If not, eat a little later.
Eat a little later. If you ain't hungry, then don't eat. Alright. Taking a look at forbidden parenting. We first told you about a mom who was arrested for letting her children walk alone. But we first told you about a mom who was arrested for having her child walk home alone. But what about the forbidden parenting? Let's take a look at this.
She left her 9-year-old daughter at a park. She left her 9-year-old daughter at a park for hours at a time.
Is that a crime today? Leaving your 9-year-old to play in a park? South Carolina police said, of course it is.
Do you see the error in your way for doing this after I explained to you what the worst case scenario could be?
They arrested the mom, and their questioning quickly turned into a lecture.
You can't leave a child that's 9 years old in a park by herself. What would you do if some sex offender came by?
The media was upset too.
The mother confessed to leaving her 9-year-old daughter at a park.
Confessed? Seems everyone agreed. She must have done something terrible.
What if a man would have came and just snatched it?
This day and time, you never know who's around, good, bad. It's just not safe.
This day and time, crime is way down, half what it was in the 90s. Reports of missing children are also down dramatically. If kids are kidnapped or molested, it's usually by a relative or a friend, not by a stranger at a park.
Feel like she'd be safer in the park than she would at home.
Deborah Harrell worked here at McDonald's. Because she couldn't afford daycare, sometimes she'd bring her daughter to work. But Regina was bored at McDonald's.
And that particular day, she called me asking, Mom, can I go to the park? She had a cell phone. She had a pocketbook with money in it. She had everything she needed.
That's not legal, said the police.
I work too. I have to send my kids to daycare, whatever, or get somebody to watch them. I just don't go, here's the park, I'll see you at 5 when I get off work. That is reckless.
He's real nasty.
He said you should send her to daycare.
$100 and some a week. I couldn't afford that.
Here was this black female
that society gives hard times. Oh, welfare queen, living at home, not getting a job. Well, that's what she was doing. She was out working, trying the best she could to take care of her child, and now we're beating her up because we didn't like the way she took care of her child.
Attorney Robert Phillips took Deborah's case for free. The cops said send her to daycare.
We found 42 incidents of sexual molestations, rapes in daycares, but we couldn't find any in the last 20 years of a single abduction in a park.
Somebody might have kidnapped her. One of those mothers apparently was upset enough that she called the cops.
Her mother probably watches too much TV herself.
Another kidnapping.
Another kidnapping.
Or another kidnapping attempt of a teenage girl.
Have you had the stranger danger talk with your kids?
He has brought up this stranger danger to where if you're not under the protective wings of mom and dad 24/7, then you're exposing your child to some unknown danger.
I felt safe because I was with my friends and their parents, and there was a lot of us.
She's very responsible young lady.
You responsible?
Yes, sir.
And she always been like that.
No, said prosecutors. No 9-year-old is responsible enough. They charged Deborah with willful abandonment of a child, a crime that carries up to a 10-year sentence. They took Regina away from her mother for 2 weeks. That must have been frightening.
It was. I would cry like at night because I was really scared, and I still didn't really know where I was or what was going on.
Police and child care workers say they're protecting children by seizing them if they walk home alone, or threatening parents, let your kids play outside and we'll take them away. One child care worker strip searched a mom after she left her kids in the car while she dashed in for muffins. Does this really protect kids?
If you take their freedom away from them, then where they gonna come at once they grow up?
They won't know how to take care of themselves.
When you hold your child in and not let them spread their wings, that's when they get in trouble.
Deborah was fortunate in that her case got enough media attention that even Nikki Haley, then South Carolina's governor, asked that Regina be given back to her mom. Prosecutors then dropped the child abandonment charge. Good. But it's just not right that with stranger kidnappings increasingly rare all over America, police and child welfare workers are more eager to punish parents who let their kids play on their own. Yes, some parents are so neglectful that police do need to intervene, but they should have very good reasons before they lock parents up.
It has to be clear, and it has to be certain. It can't be conjecture. It can't be what we've seen in the movies. We should not have unreasonable intrusions by the government telling us every little detail how to raise our children.
Please share and like this video, and to help us.
And try to understand what goes on. Even protect your kids from strangers. We talked about stranger danger last season, and a lot of comments from the stranger danger video Dateline really got attention. Time for a few minutes with Andy Ruder, then we're going to take a break. This time it's all about the ice cream. You know how to make some ice cream? If you don't know, let Andy teach you.
60 Minutes Rewind.
I'm one of the most experienced ice cream eaters in the world today. I also know how to make it. Because I feel I owe you something, tonight I'm going to show you how to make ice cream. You need a freezer, and there are several kinds. You can get one of the old-fashioned ones you crank by hand. You can get one like this with a motor on top. Or you can get one like this with a motor on the bottom. The big thing you ought to know about making ice cream is that you have to ignore most of the advice you read on how to make it. To make ice cream, don't cook anything, don't use eggs, don't use gelatin. To make vanilla ice cream, for instance, you use just 3 things: cream, sugar, and vanilla. You use as much cream as you can afford. Cream isn't very good anymore. Light cream is about like milk, and heavy cream is about like light cream. I usually put a little half and half in, too. It's cheaper. They make you think half and half is half cream and half milk, but you notice they don't say what it really is. But it adds bulk to the whole mixture. Sometimes I even use a can of evaporated milk in here. So put all the cream you can in there, and then add about 1.5 cups of sugar. I've gotten pretty good at guessing on how much sugar it is in there. Whatever tastes good is right for sugar. Then vanilla. Put in more vanilla than any recipe calls for. And keep tasting it all the time when you're making it. You have to know what it's going to taste like. It should taste a little sweeter now than you want it after it's frozen, because once it gets cold, it doesn't taste quite as sweet as it does now. Then you put the dasher in, put the top on, put the whole thing in here, put this top strap on to keep the whole thing tight. If you're a beginner, don't try to make chocolate. Chocolate's the hardest. Now, you need a bag or a cake of ice, because what you have in the refrigerator probably isn't enough. So you start putting the ice around the can in here. And then you're going to need a bag of rock salt. That's the stuff they put on the roads in the winter to make your car rot out underneath. You put in a layer of ice and a layer of rock salt. It takes a lot of rock salt. It takes maybe 20% as much rock salt as ice. But keep putting the ice and the rock salt in till this thing is full. Oh, what a mess I'm going to make of this desk. But anyway, but keep pushing it down so it's packed in and the salt is mixed up with the ice. Now there it is. It takes about 20 minutes. Plug it in, and round she goes. So, that's about it. Looks about done. Take the top off. Take the top off. Pull the dasher out. Just make sure what you've done. Bad, I wish you could join me here. This is a tough job I got.
This job seems easy for me. We're gonna take a break and come back with our viral break. This time it involves commercials and a story time that will even make you punch your dad. Well, not really though. How about when your dad catches you smoking? Listen to this. Do you remember years ago watching really funny commercials on TV? Or how about even a commercial with your face on a cake? Well, AT&T did just that when they released this advertisement. It involves face cake. Well, let's just let them explain.
New AT&T 4G LTE is fast. Did you hear Sam got promoted to director? So 12 seconds ago. We should get him a present. Thanks for a gift basket. You're welcome. You see HR just sent out office rules? Because you're currently in violation of sex at home. Oh, yeah, baby. And 7. That's your defense leaving? So 30 seconds ago. We'll miss you. Oh, thanks, Kate. Some leftover cake.
The new HTC Vivid. Stay a step ahead with AT&T 4G LTE with speeds up to 10 times faster than 3G.
Wow. Kind of cool. It's kind of amazing. Alright. Now tonight's viral break is all about when your dad catches you smoking.
Dad decides to get to my brother's room. Oh, it's more than that. No, it's more than that. Boy, my household rules were very simple.
Well, are you smoking?
No smoking cigarettes, no drinking, and whatever. Oh, it's more than that. But here's the problem. Anytime you tell a teenager not to do something, for some reason, they be like, boy, please. Son, starting today, curfew's at 9 o'clock. You got it? Yes, Dad. Please. Guess I'm sticking out, my guy.
Tim, don't forget to take the trash out.
Okay, Mom. Man, I'll do that when I'm well and ready. And that, my God, is where this story begins. So for this story, I'm gonna take you back to my preteen years. So it was back in my elementary school years. Now at the time, your boy was on spring break. Now spring break, the weather's warming up. You get to miss school for a week. No homework, no waking up in the morning, no bedtime, no parents during daytime. So one day your boy was chilling in my room. Girl, you look good when you back that ass up. You're a big fine woman when you back that ass up. Call me Big Daddy when you back that ass up. Ooh, this day. Hey. Mama, Daddy, come on. Nothing's in his room. Ooh, time for the lotion, my guy. So I get downstairs, get to the computer, and started searching. Okay, let me see. Oh, booty and please. Oh, favorite. So I get on the website and start putting in art. Okay, cool. I'm on the at work, Tim's in his room. Time to light up, like that. So my brother gets to his stash, gets to the bathroom. Damn, gotta find a way to keep the smell out the house. Oh, I know. So he turns on the bathroom fan, lights it up. Damn, why's the internet taking so long? Oh, break. Then out of nowhere, the smoke alarm starts going on. What the? The house is burning down. It's too much smoke. What do I do? So I went to the kitchen and everything's on fire. Get upstairs, still nothing flaming. So I get down the hallway and then I notice smoke coming from the bathroom. Yo, Len, you good? Yeah, I'm good. Wait a minute. That smell like, is this man? Are you smoking? Nah, bro, I'm good. Nah, kid, I know that smell. Shut up. Go away. Now, since this was none of my business and I wasn't trying to get out beats, your boy got back to business. If you know what I'm saying. Here comes home. Gotta clean up. So I turned off the computer, wiped around, you know, well, never mind. Got to my room and played it off like everything's cool.
Hey guys, we're home.
Damn, Mama Daddy here. Oh, it smells still in the air.
Guys, are you in there? Lim? Tim? How come you didn't answer?
Oh, sorry, Mom. I was taking a nap.
Where's your brother?
Shut up. Oh, this is too good to be true. Man's had me hand washing his drawers. Oh, it's payback time. Oh, he's in the bathroom, Mom.
Lim, are you in there? Yes, Mom. Are you okay, son? Come in. Just a second.
So my brother opens the door.
What is that smell?
What smell?
You don't smell that?
No.
The smoke.
Oh, that. Sorry, Mom. The hairdryer was malfunctioning. What's going on here? And where's all that smoke coming from?
Sorry, Dad. The hairdryer went bad.
Oh, really? Now my brother was playing it cool. Look at this fool. Man's really clutch with it. So onward, and my parents get to their room. Do you think the kids were smoking?
Smoking? No. They know better.
I don't think so. So just to make sure, my mom and dad came up with a plan. Take us out for dinner so Pops could search the house. Then, my dad decides to get to my brother's room. Something's gotta be in here. So looks around the room and doesn't see a thing. Then gets to my room, searches it. Oh, kid, where will I hide it? But still doesn't find anything. Oh, thank God. I'm relieved. Thought the kids were smoking. But then he looks down the hallway and notices the bathroom. So gets in, looks around, nothing's in sight. I must be overthinking it. But right before leaving, my dad notices the trash can. So he gets closer, opens it. I knew it. Oh, I'm kill him. So onward, and my brother and I return to the crib. We get in and find Pups waiting dead right in front of the house.
Who does this belong to? Not me, Dad. Not me.
So none of you? Now this wasn't good. If none of us admit to it, we both getting the beats. Does this fool think I'm gonna take an ass whooping from? Oh, hell no. So my guy, I got one question for you. You snitching on your brother or getting beat for his mistake? So I was like, Dad, on God, it's not mine. I didn't even use the bathroom. The bathroom? How'd you know I found it in the bathroom? Damn, you know you just fucked up. Dad, Lim did it. Oh, you know I wasn't getting an ass whooping for something I didn't do. So it was you. Now this is the part of the story where my Pops goes from my...
Yo! Hate rules? Brave Pugs here to spice them up for the 5v5 FPS fella.
An ass whooping to delivering the beats. So my dad looks at me. Tim, watch happens if you ever smoke. Then it turns to my brother. Here, smoke it again. No, Dad. Oh, no. You grown now, right? You know what? How about you smoke the whole pack? What? See, my dad's old school. Man's left the house, went all the way to the store and bought a whole new pack. Just to teach my brother a lesson by making him smoke the whole freaking pack. Savage. Now, smoking. No, Dad. Oh, no. Don't stop now. You a smoker, right? Okay, Smokey. Smoke the whole pack. Now my brother's confused. What should he do? Smoke the whole pack or get the beats? See, my pops was pulling the old Jedi mind trick, encouraging my brother to smoke and reversal, hoping he would. I know this fool ain't dumb enough to smoke it. No, Dad, I won't. I promise. I'll never smoke again. So my pops thought about it, and then it hit him. See, everyone was once a kid. And if there's one thing for sure, kids will make mistakes. So since my brother almost got me in trouble, my pops was like, Tim, what do you think should be your brother's punishment? Well, looks like he learned his lesson, Pops. So maybe just...
Beat his ass. Bring your ass over here. You smoking now? Because your brain over here smoking about to beat your ass. I can make you smoke the whole back till you grow up.
So, moral of the story. Be mindful of your choices. Because in life, you're one step away from ruining your life.
And moral of the story is, if your parents tell you do not smoke, don't smoke. And don't give in to peer pressure. Peer pressure can really, really hit a nerve. And if you give in to peer pressure, well, it's just too hard to get out of. That's all for this edition of Game Break Wednesday. We'll see you again for Game Break Friday. For all of us here at YouTube, man, give me a break. Stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. Take care of yourself and each other. Good night.